welcome on the stage one of the key figures in the world of Flexim simulation. Perhaps many of us would not have had opportunity to meet if not for this man, because he's a co-founder of Flexim Software Products Incorporated and has run Flexim's operation for past 24 years. Since November 2023, when Autodesk purchased Flexim, he has led Flexim's business transition into Autodesk larger organization. Today, he will share with you the presentation, Case for Simulation and the Future of Flexim with Autodesk. Roger came to us from the western part of the US, so let's give him a big round of applause now. The stage is yours, Roger.
Okay. Hello, it's good to be with you here again in Poland. This is the third time that I've been here in about the last 7 years. A year and a half ago we were here. It was during the trip last year that I caught a call from Autodesk while I was in Krakow saying, we no longer want to partner with Flexim, we want to purchase Flexim. So that little experience started in some ways while I was here. Just to kind of get a feel for the audience here, I know the majority of you are from Poland. We have Serbia's here. I heard Georgia was here as well. Claire is from France. Other countries? Okay. Romania? Kenya, okay. Very, very fun. I was going to start with a joke about a Pole, a Russian, and a German. Really, I can go ahead, because you know, once you start with a joke, if it falls flat, you get nervous. It's like, okay, I've got to redeem myself at this point, and maybe you can, maybe you can't. On the other hand, maybe the joke is so bad that the boring stuff that you talk about makes things good. I don't know. Well, the joke is this. I shared it with Witold, and where is he? Oh, there you are. So you know where I'm going with this, so if you think it's inappropriate, please stop me, okay? As Flexim, I could get away with things. With Autodesk, I can't anymore, so I've got to be a little more circumspect and careful. Anyway, I'm sure you've heard the joke before, but if not, it's worth hearing. The story goes that there was a high-level Polish military officer at a NATO conference, and one of his colleagues said to him, if 1939 were to happen again, and Poland was attacked from the east by Russia and the west by Germany, what will the Poles do? And he thought for a minute, and he said, we would fight the Germans first. And he said, oh, well, why is that? And he said, business before pleasure. Good enough, I suppose. I have to tell you, on Thursdays, in just a few minutes, every Thursday, Flexim has a lunch meeting. Everybody from Flexim who's not traveling comes into the office, and we have lunch, and then we have an agenda, and we go through the agenda. And I was noticing that our meetings were getting a little stale, a little flat. We're going through the same cycle, and so I suggested a few years ago that we have what we call a little flexibition, and that flexibition was anybody could show up and say, I want to present something on something I've read this week, something I've learned this week, something I've made this week. And so we've had people show us how to tie flies. You know, for the fly fishermen, we've had people tell us about the benefits of walking backwards. We've had book reports, silly things. So one time I asked the guys at Intermarium, I said, would you mind giving a presentation on the dynamics that are going on? It was before Russia invaded Ukraine. And I said, would you just kind of give us an overview of what others in Central Europe are thinking? And realize, I said, normally this takes 5 to 10 minutes. Well, whereas Christian and Philip ended up taking about an hour and a half telling us about all the dynamics. So it was quite an eye-opening experience. As noted there, I was one of the co-founders of FlexSim. We started it about 32 years ago, but maybe even a little bit before that. It was percolating in our heads. And I'll give you a little history of that. And then a little history of FlexSim, where we arrived at becoming part of Autodesk, the purpose, the goals, what Autodesk has in mind, I think will be important to you. And then maybe a little story at the end that might be interesting or useful, if we have time. As noted, we are located, FlexSim is located in Utah. If you don't know where that is, just go to California, Colorado, and when you hit the Rocky Mountains, that's where we are. It's a great place to live if you like outdoor activity. So please come and spend some time with us. As noted, we started in 1993. There were 3 of us that started. The third person that was with us at the time, there was Cliff, Bill, and me, Bill Nordgren. And Bill and I bought Cliff out a few years ago. Hasn't been with us for a while. We started off as resellers for a Dutch product called Taylor 2. The company at the time was called F&H Simulations. And it was a great experience. The Dutch were wonderful people. F&H Simulations BV, good company, just an exceptional experience. Had a lot of fun selling the software. That's all we had to do. And then our friends at F&H developed an engine for a new product, an object-oriented product, and they wanted us to sell that. And it was essentially a system that made simulators. And our thinking was that wasn't going to fly in the United States. We weren't going to, it would be like selling the software twice. Okay, here's something you can use to build your own simulator, and then you can simulate. That just, no, it's just not gonna happen. So what we did was we ended up developing an interface for the product that was developed by the Dutch company. And then we ended up selling it. And that's how we started to learn about developing simulation and so forth. The Dutch ended up selling their company to another Dutch company, a larger Dutch company, and where the first experience with the Dutch was wonderful, the second group was not so fun to work with, and we had already percolated in our heads what we thought simulation needed to be. And so we broke off. And we talked with our Dutch counterparts, and we said, we're going to develop something, and eventually we're going to become your competitors. And they didn't take us seriously, but we were very open and clear and honest about that and told them not only verbally but in a letter what our plans were. And they misinterpreted what we said. They assumed that we were going to develop more on the engine that they had. So we had 1 year to develop FlexSim, and that was a crazy year of just trying to keep our heads above water, because it was like we'd started our company twice. We started it when we became resellers, and then we stopped and we became developers and started all over again. It was quite a challenge. But we were able to make the release. If you take a look at the timeline of different products, there's a lot of incestuous relationships among the simulation companies. And you can kind of see you can't miss FlexSim. It's the most important component of that graph there. But there would be little dotted lines all over the place. For example, the person who started Emulate 3D, Ian McGregor, bright guy, really good guy, was with Automod before he started Demo 3D. As I mentioned, we started with Taylor 2. Enterprise Dynamics came out of that. So FlexSim kind of has its roots there as well. Simulate was developed by an individual who had worked for Witness, the Lanner Group, for a while. So there's just, all of us were around, and most of them are available today. The only one, we have a little headstone there with Automod, if you're familiar with them, another, frankly, an exceptional product way before its time. They announced earlier this year that they'll discontinue selling it as a commercial product in the next year or so. So all of those products are still there. Interestingly, we really don't come up against them much in competitive situations in the United States. I know that's not here in Europe, we'll see plant simulation much more frequently than we do maybe some of the other products. But in the US, it's FlexSim and Simio and sometimes AnyLogic. So all good products. Oops. The first goal when we started to develop FlexSim was we wanted to develop a new engine, and we wanted that engine to be object-oriented. We wanted it to be developed in C++. And the engine was supposed to take care of the components that you see there. It's supposed to have the clock, take care of the time, statistics, be able to link to other software, have an integrated 3D engine, and so forth. And so the goal was to create this simulation engine with which we could create a simulator. Kind of like the Dutch idea, but the first simulator we were going to develop was going to be our own. And so the first application built with the engine was FlexSim, the product that you use today. We wanted to be able to develop a product that any company, well, I'll back up. When we were selling Taylor 2, in the early days, simulation, as you saw earlier, has been around for a long time, but it was just starting to pick up some momentum in the commercial markets. And more often than not, companies would come to us and they'd say, can you develop, or can we build a model of a fill in the blank? A warehouse, order picking, manual order picking that does this, that, and the other thing. And of course you could do that, but they wanted a simulator that was specific to that. Or they'd come to us and say, we want a container terminal, a shipping, at a port. We want a container terminal simulator. Can your simulation do that? The answer was always yes, but then when we presented and demonstrated the software, it was always these basic, oh, here's a machine. Consider that a crane. Here's this, and they're saying, well, it's really then not simulating it. Well, it is, but you just have to kind of use your imagination. So the thought was, what if we were able to build something to where instead of dragging out a standard machine, we could actually drag out something that was unique to that company and make it easier for them to build models with. And so I should come here. So we started to have companies come to us and say, we like your software. It's a little complex for us. You've heard today that one of the driving forces is how do you simplify model building? Because you're taking very complex processes and logistics problems and trying to then put them in a simulation system that mimics it in somehow as close as possible. And so Coca-Cola came to us and said, we would like our own objects, just drag and drop objects, easy enough. All we had to do was build these objects, throw them in the software, make a little library, and off they were going. Coca-Cola wasn't the first. General Mills was the first. But the goal also was not only to create maybe specific applications for specific companies or for specific industries, but also to expand the software's capability through third parties, through other people that understood systems and applications and industries better than we did. And so FlexSim, for example, we started to develop a little mining simulator that ran on the FlexSim engine, and a company came to us and said, we really like this, we've been using it, can we buy the mining portion of it from you and sell it? Because you guys don't know what you're doing in mining. And so we had partners in certain industries that were using FlexSim, selling FlexSim with an add-on for that industry. Anyway, and so we had we want to be able to park and bring and integrate that additional functionality, whether it's emulation or optimization or, as we noted here, some company-specific module. Now, I'll leave it at that. Well, at the same time, we wanted to continue to just revamp the engine as frequently and often as we had to. One of the criticisms that I would have of Flexim since the day we started is we ran our company not as a commercial venture. Of course, we needed to make money, but we ran it kind of as a research kind of experiment. We just always wanted to be on the cutting edge. If there was something new that we needed to implement or that something we heard from a few users, we wanted it in the software. And so our goal was, we thought, well, we're in a kind of a technology sector, obviously. Why don't we, Bill, my partner, brought this book, and it said, if you really want to be a serious businessman and grow your business, you've got to decide early on if you're going to be the market leader, the technical leader, or the service leader. And I read the book because he'd asked me to, and I thought, this is the dumbest book I've ever read. It would seem to me that since we're in the tech industry, that we ought to be the technical leader, and everything else will just follow. Anyway, it's really been this focus to continually improve Flexim over the years that I think has been a hallmark. Now, the users in the end will have to decide whether what I've said is true or not. But from my perspective, where we set out, we did a fairly decent job of hitting close to the bullseye. As you've noticed, historically we've had a release cadence that is 3 releases a year primarily. We started in 2016. We changed the name of Flexim rather than going to version 7 and 8 and 9 and so forth. We just thought, let's just call the first release of every calendar year, that's the release name. And then we'll make it really easy. When we have the second release, it'll be, the first release in the year, update 1, and then the second release, update 2. And we've followed that cadence for a while. As I mentioned, Autodesk came knocking a little while ago and said, made us an offer to purchase Flexim and to make Flexim an Autodesk offering and to integrate Flexim into their various products. If you'll read the Simulation Manager, the interview by Steve Hooper, he'll tell you why they purchased Flexim in more detail, but the 3 reasons were right there. He said primarily the people. Now, that's obligatory, but the reality is that's the truth. Software, at least right now, it's getting really close to being created with AI, right? You've all probably played with different systems to see what you can develop. But really, it's people that are creating the software that's very, very talented and curious types of people that like to develop software and to create tools that help other people manage their systems better. They did a lengthy evaluation of the different discrete event simulation products out there and then just came to the conclusion that they would purchase Flexim. And then, of course, there was a gap in their product offering. All of their products are kind of static, a lot of them, right? They're just pictures, pretty pictures, good pictures, important things. But Flexim takes them and then makes them move and gives them meaning and gives them statistics and information. So that was important. I want to go back to this comment that he made about our distributor, our people. In that, one of our concerns was, over the course of time, we've become very close to those people that sell Flexim and support Flexim internationally. And our concern was, what would Autodesk do with our people? Flexim as a business is small, but we have another we assume almost 200 people, 165 to 200 people that support FlexSim worldwide. Those individuals have families, they have homes, they have mortgages. What's going to happen? And as you can see, most of our distributors have been with us a very long time. And they are, bar none, they are the experts in the areas where they service their customers. And so when we brought that up, Autodesk was real quick to say, whoa, 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 whoa. When we are looking to purchase, we've purchased a lot of companies over the years. And sometimes we've purchased companies and we've let everybody go. We just wanted the technology. And when we've done that, the success rate has either taken longer to see a return on investment or it hasn't been as successful as we expected it to be. We want everybody to come along. And so that was something we wanted to hear. So I'll tell you a little bit about Autodesk then as we'll shift into that. I'll tell you a few things about Autodesk that you can find on the internet. But I was looking at their annual report, and on page 14 they talked about acquisitions, and I was wondering if maybe they put the amount there that they had paid for FlexSim. Because then the government would come after us for tax. I'm just joking, we would have been honest. But they talked about we make investments to privately held companies. They partner a lot. And when we started off with Autodesk, it was the story was, hey, we'd like to partner with you. Well, at the time we were working with NVIDIA on the Omniverse. We were working with Microsoft, with Bonsai to work on machine learning and artificial intelligence, kind of wrapping that up into FlexSim. By the way, that turned into a complete development disaster. Why? We worked for about a year and a half and put one of our all of our programmers are good. I better be careful because I'm the oldest guy at FlexSim in terms of longevity, and Jonah here is the youngest, and so they're all wonderful people. But he said we would like to partner with you, and that's how we kind of approached it. But the Bonsai thing was crazy because we developed a bunch of stuff. We were ready to turn the switch to now be Microsoft partners on the Bonsai, on the artificial side. Now, if you were going to be a partner with any other company, don't you think Microsoft would be a safe bet? Well, Jordan, our developer, has his meetings, his weekly meetings with Microsoft, and there are usually about 30 engineers or whatever it was. There's one, and he just says, Jordan, Microsoft pulled the plug. They've shut Bonsai down. And this was maybe a week to 2 weeks before we were supposed to release it, so some wasted time there. Anyway, and then the other thing that I thought was really interesting, the bottom part in their annual report said the acquisitions during fiscal year 24 and 23 were not individually significant. So I thought, well, that's how they feel about FlexSim. We're not very significant. But that's not what they told us. They lied to us, apparently, when they were trying to buy us. A little information about Autodesk. Again, information that you can find about them. They were founded in the early 1980s. They're based out of San Francisco. Alan said they had about 14,400 employees. If you go on, I have this little flow chart of all the employees that I can see, and it tells me how many we have at any given time. And the last time I looked, we had over 16,000 employees. About 1,000 of those are temporary, or it's a publicly traded company. If you want to buy stock in it, you can. And I bring this up because when Autodesk purchased FlexSim, their stock was at $206. It is now at $268, and I apply all of that growth to FlexSim only. So, while not true, I need to be, of course, careful. But their sales are about $5.5 billion last year. You're going to see an area there where it went flatline for them for several years. And what they did, and you'll know this from maybe having used, a lot of us are older here. I have on my shelf in my office an AutoCAD 2007, and I think we paid $7,000 or $8,000 for that at the time. Well, they went to the subscription model, and so for a year that flatlined, and then revenue's taken off after that. But anyway, it's a good company. There are three primary divisions within Autodesk. There's the architectural engineering construction, they just call it AEC. There's the product development manufacturing solutions, the PDMS, and that's where FlexSim falls right now. And then there's the media and entertainment, which is most of the animation cartoons that are made by the different, like Disney and so forth, are made with Autodesk products, Maya, 3ds Max, and so forth. So those are the three areas, and that'll be important in a bit. So what are the plans for FlexSim with Autodesk? Before we can go on, one of the things that as FlexSim, we just kind of did things as we wanted to do them. We were a small company, so a lot of the laws that apply to larger companies didn't apply to us. And for us, it was the wild, crazy west. We just wanted people using the software. I'll give you an example. You heard of the shooting in Uvalde. And after the shooting, we got a call, and they said, the hospital there said, we experienced something we never want to experience again. We were understaffed, undermanned. We need simulation software so that we can prepare for emergencies in the future. Okay, great. What's the price? Well, the price is what it is. And they said, oh, that's too, do you have a competitor that sells something lower? And we just, at that point, we just, well, what's your budget? They told us what the budget was. We said, okay, deal, just take the software. He said, well, we need 2 licenses for that budget. Okay, that's fine, 2 licenses. And we need training for 3 people. Okay, just do it. So that was our attitude. Things have changed. With a publicly traded company, the rules that we've had to learn and to abide by, in the beginning, I thought, this is silly. This is just creating so much friction to try to get the software in the hands of people. But you realize over time quickly that a publicly traded company, there are rules, there are regulations, there are policies that they are required to follow. And one of them is this: when we do a presentation, if I were here a year ago talking about FlexSim, I would just say, guess what's coming to FlexSim? And maybe it would happen, maybe it wouldn't. Now, if I said it was going to happen, generally it did. If we would present something, Joanna and I, it would happen. But we have to be careful here. And so we have this safe harbor explanation with any presentation that we do that says, don't believe everything I say. Market conditions can change, plans can change, technology could change, so don't run out and buy any stock in Autodesk based on what we're going to say today, okay? We're looking forward, but we don't know what's going to happen. We just try to give you a best explanation. So the buzzword worldwide, at least the last couple of years, is, at least within our industry, at FlexSim, has been a digital twin. And at Autodesk, they call it digital transformation, and they have this plan to just create what they're calling a digital factory. And like you, they look at the world of software, and they see the mess that exists, right? All of the different departments using different products, no communication between the systems in some cases. I'll tell you just quickly, we had some of you who were here and come to the conference here last year, I think it was last year, was it Josh here last year? Josh and Emily? 2 years ago. So Josh was one of our engineers, and he went to work for Tesla about a year ago. And we still remain close. He's come out and visited us and did a presentation for us at one of our Thursday lunch meetings. But in talking with him last week, how are things going at Tesla? It's one of FlexSim's larger clients in the US. And he said, it's great. They're loving software. It's wonderful. And I said, well, how are you doing? He said, man, I'm hating my life. I'm having to, when they saw what he could do, they wanted him to work with different groups because they all had silos of information and data that needed to be had in order to build some of the simulations. And he said, you know, when he hated life, I'm exaggerating, those were my words more than his, I guess. But he was spending so much time collecting data from dispersed products in order to kind of bring them all together and use them in a... and it brought to mind this graph that I'd seen in a presentation earlier, that research has shown that about 80% of data out there just kind of goes, information goes unused. One of the things that's been very impressive to me about Autodesk is their pulse on how the market is moving and where things are going. Periodically, I'll sit in meetings, and the research that they've done, that they're sharing with us, that is then transmitted to their marketing staff, their sales staff, and then obviously to their development staff. These are things that we need to do, has been remarkable. It'll come as no surprise that everybody thinks that we've got to somehow do a better job of collecting information, sharing it, and then reusing it. I'm just a little bit behind, but you'll see just quickly. COVID was several years ago. President Obama in the U.S. said, we were talking about the economy. He was talking about manufacturing. And Alan, you maybe remember, maybe Jonah, you were still in diapers at the time. But he said something along the lines about manufacturing. Look, those jobs have left. Those companies have left the United States. They are in Mexico, they're in China, they're in Vietnam, and they are not coming back. Do you remember that, Alan? I thought, that can't be. Well, COVID did a lot of good for manufacturing, at least in the United States. It's brought back a lot of reshoring or offshoring to countries that are more in line in terms of working in with the United States. And so in looking at that mess, Autodesk has a bucket load of products that are all kind of now, they're working to put them all together and to make them function and you know, work as a team as opposed to being independent products. And the idea is right now, of course, we can import a CAD layout. We can start to import Fusion drawings. Soon, if not, well, soon it's going to be, we'll have Revit available. Jonah will talk a little bit about that, I assume. But how do we streamline those operations? And what Autodesk wants to do is there's an idea that what if we put all of these products on a complementary, on the same platform? So think of FlexSim. We had an engine, and we wanted to just be able to plug in applications that could run on that engine. The vision is very similar. It's just a larger vision of that same kind of mentality, if you will. So create a platform upon which all those products can function. And maybe go a step further so that the data can be shared between them as well. So we have a platform where data and information can be shared not only among the, so the Fusion here, then that's the name that the PDMS, the manufacturing side, is doing. Our side is called. Forma is the Autodesk side of things, the engineering, CAD drawing, so forth. And then the flow is the arts and entertainment. But they still, wouldn't it be good if we just could import a CAD layout? That CAD layout has some additional information than just a drawing. Maybe it has the speed of the conveyor. It has maybe some other, machines, the process time or whatever, such that when those are imported, it knows this is a conveyor, this is a belted conveyor, this is this type of machine, and those assets are pulled automatically, and a model is built without any effort. Now, the logic still would remain. So the idea then is that that maybe all of these, the goal is that maybe all of these products can and should work together so that we can use that data and reuse it and share it. That's kind of the long-term goals for FlexSim in the next little while, is to get FlexSim working with some of the other Autodesk products, the desktop product. Eventually, at some point in the future, forget the word near, sometime in the future, we hope to have a completely available web-based, cloud-based product. What that'll allow you to do is better collaboration in model building. So you could have a model builder in the US, a model builder in Poland, a model builder in Singapore looking at the same model, working at the same model and talking maybe at the same time about what to do. So the benefits are huge as we work towards that goal. Time frame, that's why the safe harbor comment was there. No idea. They have some ideas or goals within Autodesk, but that development, one of the things I've noticed so far with Autodesk is that, one, they are very thorough. Two, they're very patient. Three, they're very smart about everything that they do. A lot of people will say, well, why did you sell then to FlexSim? I can tell you right now, for the last maybe 5 years, I'm not exaggerating, but almost daily, but at least weekly, FlexSim, my partner and I, we would get calls, are you interested in selling FlexSim? And the answer was always, thank you for calling no, thank you for calling no, thank you for calling no. Not one time did we ever entertain that. Our goal was to leave FlexSim to Jonah and the rest of the FlexSim people to run and to ruin or do whatever they were going to do with it. But we thought that was the right thing to do. One of the concerns is, well, who do we leave to manage this to? They all think they're the best. And so when Autodesk came, it seemed like given their view of what they wanted to do, how they saw FlexSim and simulation fit in to their menu of products, the long-term goals that they had for it seemed to fit. And I'll tell you one of the other reasons, motivators, that helped me decide, yeah, I think it's time to sell, is I'm having a very difficult time looking into the future. 20 years ago, it was easy. We needed to do this, 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 and this. And I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older or if it's because the acceleration of new technology is beyond my capacity to say, how do you put this all together? And the one thing that has me a little more nervous than anything is AI. Have any of you played with Claude AI? I sat down with my son-in-law and we said, he has a subscription, a paid subscription for it. And we said, okay, develop a discrete simulator. Create an interface that does this, this, and this. Boom, it's there. I want to look at some reports that show me wait time of my machines, throughput of the entire model, and I can't remember whatever else we threw in there. Bang, within seconds, it's there. And because that bothered me and scared me, and I thought, what are we going to do? Autodesk, one of the things that they're always talking about, and they're looking and they're investing in heavily, was AI. And I thought, this is a company where FlexSim can land, where whatever they do with it, the DNA will continue, and it'll benefit companies for hopefully another generation or longer. I want you to know that I think FlexSim is in the best hands it could be in. They are the only company that we ever considered working with. They're a software company. One of the things they've already started looking at, they've sent out their experience design, is that what they call that group? The experience design group, coming out and saying, how do we make this just even look easier and better for the users? What can we get rid of that doesn't need to be here? They're extremely helpful, professional in ways that we were not. So I want you to feel comfortable about what's taken place and where things are going. A little unclear, but it'll be good. They are committed, at least in every word, and no one has varied from this, in doing what they call democratizing FlexSim, making it easier to use. And that's something I think we, as we were saying, oh, technology. Sometimes we'd create something and our developers say, isn't that cool? And my head was spinning saying, the average person can't do this. The average smart person can't do this. The only person that can do this is you. And so we've got to do a better job of making the product useful for end users. And I suspect that'll be the case. Anyway, those are the thoughts that I have. I think, Jonah, I've jumped into your time a little bit. Forgive me. Questions? I think Jonah will answer a lot of those, but we can jump up afterwards and answer any other maybe more specific questions you have. Unless you have some right now.
Yeah. Okay. Microphone.
I have one, and it is a question specifically for you. Maybe it's rather quite more personal, but...
I'm married?
Oh, what a pity. I was interesting, like, that was our thought here, like, you set up the company, you built the FlexSim from scratch, and you today have seen a lot of people using it, talking something about it, and how is it?
Fun question. It is exciting for me. Every time we go to a conference and we see people do things, I think, oh, this is so cool. And my feelings are not hurt when we hear, this was difficult. I couldn't do this. Oh, this was painful. FlexSim, please fix this, things like that. We hear all of it, and it's good to hear. It's wonderful to hear. In our Thursday lunch meetings, when we, at the end of every meeting, we have what we call in-service. And so either our consultants will show a model that they've built, or our developers will show something that they've developed. And what's amazing is our consultants will be up there showing something that they've developed in FlexSim, and the developers are scratching their heads going, now, how did you do that? They had no idea that FlexSim could do something. On the other hand, the consultants will show a model, a very complex model, and they'll be complaining to the developers, this took me 6 days to get this little thing done. And the developers will say, well, there's this little feature over here that had you click this button or done this. And so people are learning all the time. So it's a wonderful, for me, it's exciting. Yeah.
Great.
And Vital want to talk something?
If I may, Roger. You've mentioned subscription as a present and future of FlexSim in the Autodesk, but we have still a perpetual kind of license. Could you describe your view on that, the advantages and what is your view on perpetual license as from the perspective of using and possibly buying?
If the advantage to a subscription is it's going to be lower priced. The advantage to the perpetual option is that you can share the license. The subscription is node locked, it's tied to a single machine, so you're not sharing it within your organization. So that's, I think, probably the main component. That would be really it. I mean, the functionality is the same, right? So small consulting companies can buy the subscription. I have a project, I may only use it one time. It's a little bit less expensive. Company that is using simulation as a tool, where they have a simulation team and they're using it frequently, maybe even operationally, then the perpetual is probably the best way to go.
Thank you.
And I'll talk about a little bit about that later on.
Yeah. Hearing about FlexSim from its founder is really quite a treat. So I think you are delighted with the Roger presentation. Thank you, Roger, for honoring us with your attendance. Yeah.